No início o universo era estruturado. Após 6 dias Deus criou a terra e o sol e de repente dinossauros veganos nasciam, trabalhavam, maçarico queima a terra. Índios chegaram em 1500, Urano decai pra ele, o óleo, o tecido mole. James Webb refutou o Big Bang.
Eu sabia que não ia voltar, admite astronauta que ficou preso no espaço, parte 1, 2 horas atrás, 1.600 visualizações. Agora dá pra fazer collab no YouTube, que tá aqui, Space Today e Space Orbit juntos. Não sabia que dá pra fazer collab no YouTube, tá os dois canais juntos aqui. Ó, já começa assim?
We gotta do something. We lost the ability to fully control the spacecraft. You could hear that the spacecraft was laboring. We can't get back to Earth like this. We got to do something. We have to get docked because I don't want to not make it. We probably won't come home.
Vamos ver.
Salve, salve amigos da astronomia em todo mundo. Estou aqui com essa nova vertente aqui, já falei para vocês do Space Today, já fizemos algumas entrevistas aí nesse estilo aqui de podcast e estamos aqui de novo porque hoje é um dia muito especial, hein? Teremos a chance de falar com talvez três astronautas aí, inédito na história do universo.
Pelo menos do Brasil, com
do
certeza. Brasil,
com certeza. Nunca ninguém fez isso, né, Pedrão? Nós vamos fazer isso. Nós estamos aqui na Evangélica, aqui em Anápolis. Viemos aqui participar aí, estão acontecendo um evento muito interessante aqui. O Butch Wilmore está aqui com a gente, o Jeffrey Willis está aqui com a gente, o Joey também, que também não é astronauta, mas também é ligado a essa questão da exploração espacial. Então, e é uma transmissão, podcast em conjunto com quem? Pedrão do Space Orbit.
Olá pessoal, bem-vindos ao Space Orbit. Vamos unir forças de novo, né, Sérgio? Para fazer algo muito bacana, que é falar com esses caras que a gente acompanhou voarem e acompanhou a história deles durante um bom tempo. E se o Marco Ponto estiver aqui também, será
mais um
muito bacana. Isso. Então, essa entrevista toda vai ser em inglês, mas vai ter legenda para vocês. A gente vai traduzir
em inglês,
porque o papo rola um pouco mais fácil e aí vocês também podem pegar todos os detalhes dessa conversa, tá bom? Então, aproveita, deixa o like, né?
Deixa o like, se inscreve aí. E vai ser um papo muito legal.
E agradecer a Univangélica pela oportunidade única.
Isso aí. Estamos aqui, graças à Univangélica, trouxe a gente aqui, conhecemos os caras lá na Campus Party e eles trouxeram a gente aqui. E agradecer demais e falar para vocês, a Univangélica, que é uma instituição de muito respeito aqui em Anápolis, aqui no estado de Goiás, ela tem os cursos em EAD, que a gente chama, que é ensino à distância, também semipresenciais, tá? Então, curso de graduação, tem curso de pós-graduação, tem tudo. Uma instituição aí com mais de 70 anos de tradição e inovação. Então tem os cursos de medicina deles são muito fortes, tem toda a área aí de engenharia também e tudo mais. E é o seguinte, ó.
Foi lá, não foi aqui não.
Os cursos dele estão aí, vou deixar um QR Code aqui na tela para vocês.
Caralho.
Você acha que o feto não é uma vida humana?
Não, eu não acho.
Então é uma vida de que espécie?
Velho. Não é uma vida.
Então não precisa matar, porque já tá morto.
Não, não é uma vida humana.
Vocês
é um
ser vivo.
Não é uma vida.
Tá, mas é um ser vivo de que espécie?
Não importa de que espécie que é o ser vivo.
Você é contra objetificar a mulher, mas a favor de objetificar o feto. Os maiores...
Peraí, como é que é? Qual a espécie de ser vivo? Que papo é esse?
Maiores, por exemplo, decidem se aquele feto tem direito.
Eu não disse que o feto é uma mesa. Eu disse que o feto é um ser vivo,
tá,
mas
então
ele
ser
não é
vivo
uma
de
vida.
que espécie?
Ele não é uma vida, ele é um ser vivo.
Ser vivo... Ué, mas um ser vivo não tem que ter vida para estar vivo, senão ele é um ser morto.
Uma vida não é só uma coisa biológica.
O feto não tá vivo?
Ele tá vivo, mas ele não é uma vida.
Não faz o menor sentido o que você tá falando.
Se você for uma vida, um ser vivo ou até uma mesa, me segue em @paulosouza.oficial.
Vocês o tempo todo, tá? Você pode se matricular a qualquer momento, até dia 20 de setembro. Você vai ter 80% de desconto na sua matrícula até o 20 de setembro. Então, quer fazer um curso aí com a Univangélica em EAD ou semipresencial? Vai que você é daqui da região, pode também. Então, se matricule aí com 80% de desconto. Muito obrigado, Univangélica. A sua vocação exige a melhor formação. Graças a eles que nós estamos aqui. É isso? Let's start?
Let's change the language now. Now is the part that you can understand.
It's going to be very short if we don't change the language.
First of all, thank you very much for this opportunity to talk with all you guys. We know that it's very hard to, adjust all the schedules to be here and to talk with us. We are both channels about space flight, and we just love that as much as you do. But the difference that you went there, in case of both of you, and we want to understand more of you, what you learned about it, space and the life here on Earth. And we, of course, I want details about your recent space flight and your experience, Jeffrey, with Mark Pontes, and then something about Soyuz. And okay, I will do the first question. Mm-hmm. What do you prefer, crashing your car or landing with a Soyuz?
I don't want to crash a car ever.
Because I heard that the impact is rough, right? It's not easy. It's not that hard, but it's not.
No, it is that hard. Hell, it's the hardest thing I've ever been hit in my life. I played football, American football in college, and I got hit really hard. Yeah. Not as hard as I did landing the shuttle.
Really?
I mean, the Soyuz. I mean, the soft letting eject fire, that's a really hard kick in the back, as if somebody's whacking you with a sledgehammer.
And then
a nanosecond later, you slam into the ground. And we landed in permafrost. Ooh. I landed in March of 2015. Yeah, and it was really hard. And I remember hitting and going, I cannot believe I didn't get the breath knocked out of me. That's how hard it was. But you're laying in a formed.
Como é que é? Que é isso, mano?
Nos anos 50.
Tá na fila.
A bucket is kind of formed to your body, so it takes the impact, and it's a wonderful design.
Próximo astronauta brasileiro aí, o Pedrão, pela Vero Space, né? Esqueci agora o nome daquele troço, Mano, tu acredita que eu tô na fila da Virgin Galactic até hoje, desde 2019? Então, ainda tô na fila pra voar na Virgin Galactic. Sarah mission.
Design, especially considering how hard we hit. And sometimes we just stuck but sometimes you hit and you bounce and you roll and you tumble.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I didn't have any of that. How about you?
I bounced and tumbled 3 times.
There you go.
Once in permafrost and once in the fall, early fall. I always told my crewmates before we impacted the ground, I said, okay, stop talking. Otherwise, if you're in the middle of a sentence, you'll bite your tongue.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because we saw the Chinese Shenzhou, they tumble a lot. Yeah. And
o inglês do Pedrão é bom, pô.
Man, that would be rough. And you're returning to space after months being there, and you know that everything on your stomach is not that good because your body is trying to understand where I am. Yeah. And you hit the ground.
Well, I don't know if it would be that good. The whole ride back in the Soyuz was a wonderful, exciting, thrilling adventure. And so hitting the ground and tumbling, it's just part of the adventure.
It's just part of the adventure, yeah. The highlight of the entire experience was when the parachute opening completed and was successful.
Right, exactly right. It's a great thing when you return from space at 17,500 miles an hour or 28,000 kilometers per second. And the parachute works successfully.
Yeah, it's always good.
Good feeling.
But in your case, Butch, you had 3 experiences: shuttle, Soyuz, and Dragon, right? Not for your choice for Dragon, but due to circumstances.
Cadillac shuttle. Ooh, what's kind of car? Sports car.
Lada.
I mean, the Soyuz is a great ride. Dragon, sturdy. I mean, I remember when the drogues went out. I mean, this is just 4 months ago, so it's pretty fresh in my mind. The drogues come out, and you can feel the tension just coming through your body, and how, wow, I hope that rod that's holding that strap that holds those drogues stays with us, because it felt that firm, that hard. And then, of course, the parachutes come out, and it's a great feeling. The whole ride back is just absolutely thrilling. You know you're returning to the planet. You're returning to all the folks that you love and that you love you and that love you. And you know there's nobody else in the universe doing this at that moment. So it's unique. And just to go through the being inside the fireball and increase in gravitational forces, and you can feel the capsule go from a horizontal gradually to vertical, and then you can feel the fact that you're falling straight down towards the Earth. And of course, looking out the window, you do your deorbit burn, you come pretty significantly far down before you start to enter the atmosphere and get into the fireball. So before that, you're really close to the planet. You're up here, you're traveling, you get a sensation of speed, but when you're close like this and you're going 28,000 kilometers per second, oh my, looking out the window, you can see the speed and you are just flat. 8 kilometers a second. I mean, that's how fast you're going, and you can see it, you can feel it, and the experience is amazing.
Jeffrey?
Yeah, no, all of that. And just to add to that, when you finally got through the fireball and the high Gs, 4 Gs, and it started dropping off, you knew you went subsonic when all of a sudden you hear this rushing wind outside, because you didn't hear it until when you're hypersonic. When you go subsonic, you hear that, and it's shortly after that the parachute opening sequence begins. And I don't know how long it is in the Dragon. It's about 25 seconds in the Soyuz. It's the longest 25 seconds of your life, riding. And when the drogue chutes come out in the Soyuz, because you're spinning 13 degrees a second, and you're being just thrown back and forth in the straps, it's pretty rough 20 seconds too.
And it was rough, but great.
It was great. Oh, yeah.
Joel Santana mandou R$5. Cada dia mais difícil conseguir um emprego. O RH enlouqueceu. Link.
Que isso que tu mandou, cara? Deixa eu ver.
Conseguir esse emprego, é necessário que foda bem.
Se a senhora quer assim...
Que?
Vamos fazer um teste já. Venha comigo.
Ai, meu Deus, se eu broxar, eu perco o emprego.
The drogues come out in the Soyuz, and you, like he said, you're spinning and flopping, and the sun's coming in and out of the window. It's just thrilling.
And it
That's
starts
great.
to swing like a pendulum, right?
You can, the Soyuz.
Well, that's after the main chute.
Yeah, from
opens.
the main chute.
But the main chute is like, it burps.
Yeah.
It fills with air.
Yeah.
And then it burps. And you can feel that surging as it's burping. You can feel it as you're falling.
And of course, when it's first opened, you're under the parachute, but you're kind of hanging on your side a little bit because it's mounted off center on the capsule. And then it's like 2 minutes and some seconds later, there's a release of that off center mounting to center it. And then shortly after that, the seats pop up. They change position. You don't feel like the seat is pushing you up. You feel like the panel in front of you just flies closer to you. And that's to prepare for its ability to stroke on impact.
Yeah. Serjão?
Joy. Talk to Joy.
Oh, question for Joe.
You're breaking the ice.
Yeah. Joe, could you tell us a bit about answers in Genesis, partnership with Unevangelica, and your expectations for the impact of the Science and Purpose Conference and Barry's visit to Brazil?
Yes, well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm keeping the seat warm if possibly the third astronaut makes it here.
Well, we heard that you know about
I
nuclear
understand
propulsion.
Portuguese because I live in Mexico. I speak Spanish. So it was, and yes, I was with the people. We don't go to space. We go underneath the water. I don't know why anybody in their sane mind would want to go underneath water.
Don't go on a submarine called Titan, please. Don't go. It's not a good idea.
Yeah. But so it's a privilege to be here. I've been having a friendship and a collaboration with Unevangelica for a few years now. It's been getting closer and closer. And the point of that relationship is, and I don't think everybody in this table would agree, but that's fine. The science, is this false dichotomy that's put between science and faith. When you call something science, but you're actually talking about empiricism, not empirical science. One is a philosophical commitment, the other one is empirical science. Those are not the same thing. And then so many young people, and it's not only that, but many young people are being raised with that false dichotomy. And so we want to help not only the church, but the university with discussing those things. But not only that, but that's how you deal with rationalism, materialism from rationalism, and also with postmodernism, which most of postmodernism rejects rationalism all out. They even reject the mathematical principles of materialism, a lot of that. And dealing with those ideas of identity, which I think everybody here, no matter what sphere of world you're in, we're all seeing the activism in the media, in the legislation in the world that tends to deal with who gets to teach children what their identity is. Is it the government's job or is it the parents' job? And we're all seeing that. So these are all things that we have to deal with. And so we're a resourcing ministry to help the Christian organizations to be able to be prepared to deal with that. And the last part of the question was about this week. Being here is to more introduce these subjects, and with Barry and with Jeffrey and with also Arturo, who's an engineer from Chile.
Peraí que minha cabeça tá bugada aqui. Deixa eu ver se eu entendi aqui um negócio muito específico. Véi, é isso mesmo que eu tô entendendo ou eu tô ficando doido? Tá Serjão, Space Orbit e Henrique entrevistando um astronauta, recebendo patrocínio da Uni-Evangélica, que tá fazendo evento junto com o Answer in Genesis, que é o site que distorce tudo de ciência com criacionismo de terra jovem. Não é nem criacionismo normal, é criacionismo de terra jovem. Que é o que o Webb e o Jaquetinha usa. É isso mesmo que eu tô vendo ou eu tô ficando maluco aqui?
And myself, 2 students and 2 faculty. So I think it's been a success so far. I pray it continues to be.
Yeah, I think always there is space for both, especially when you're returning. There's no atheist. You need to return and pray for the parachute to work.
To Butch and Jeffrey, we try to inspire the young people here in Brazil to follow the scientific career, maybe be an astronaut. I want to know what inspired you to follow to be an astronaut.
É isso mesmo, cara. É isso em Genesis. Terra 6.000 anos.
Astronaut and...
O Tigril é impressionante. No Tigril é ou você seja filha da puta e ganha dinheiro no Tigril, ou você é mais um fudido como qualquer um, entendeu?
Eu só vim te trazer um prato de comida, nossa. Que do nada.
Obrigado.
And, how your background, academic background or military background, help you in the astronaut career for both of you?
I think initially for me it was a desire to do my part for my country. As I went through high school and into college, I majored in electrical engineering, and I really wanted to do my part. I didn't know how to do that, how I would go about that, but I had this airplane in my mind's eye, a jet airplane. It wasn't a Navy airplane, I came to find out. It was a different, but anyway, I chose that path, and fortunately was able to select jet aircraft, flew on aircraft carriers, did that for many years, many deployments. Requested to go into test pilot training because to use my engineering background, and was selected for that, and then had a lot of the wickets that you needed at the time to make application to be a space shuttle pilot. And so I thought, well, you can't fly any higher than faster than a space shuttle at the time. So I thought, well, we'll try that. And
why not?
I think it was my 4th application that I finally got selected. So that was the initial part, as far as...
Até desanimei do vídeo.
As far as going to and getting into this business. I'm very grateful, very privileged to serve our nation in its military. And I think any nation, anyone that does it in any nation would have the same feeling, should have the same feeling. It's a privilege to be able to do that, and certainly to get selected by NASA and serve in that capacity as well, since it's even fewer astronauts, right? That's even more of a privilege, if you will, to continue to serve your country in that manner, because it does take a great deal of commitment and a great deal of preparation. John Young, one of the 12 men to step foot on the surface of the moon, was in the astronaut corps. Of course, he was kind of emeritus, still there around, but wasn't going to be flying in space. He said, if you're not willing to put in 10 hours a day, eight days a week, you don't need to be here. Well, if you hear what I said. There's more than 8. There's not 8 days in a week, right?
Yeah.
You got to put in what's required, and then balancing that with my responsibilities, my God-given responsibilities as a husband, and then eventually as a father. Making that balance is very important. It's vital. You can't have a family and do the things that God would have us do, and be the men that God would have us be, if you're not putting your wife first, your children, second, if you will. If you had to rack and stack them, and work is way down the list. And to have a job that requires so much, it's very difficult to balance all of that out. So that's a challenge that prayerfully we weathered that storm, and we were able to make all that happen. Responsibilities as a husband.
Yeah, I remember being influenced by a 6th grade science teacher. Really turned me on, kind of turned a corner, turned me on to math and science. So I was interested in that. And then later, I also had a desire to serve our country in the military, and learned about the academies halfway through high school and applied, got accepted to West Point. And there I got introduced to flying. And I thought I'd want to be an engineer going there. I thought a civil engineer, but introduction to flying, I changed my goal to aeronautical engineer. So that was my focus both in undergraduate and later in graduate school, after going to flight school. Also, while I was a cadet at West Point, I read Tom Wolfe's book, The Right Stuff. And that, along with a couple of mentors there, turned me on to aspire to become an experimental test pilot and a NASA astronaut. So that was in the late 70s. And I applied over 10 years, 6 times before getting selected. Selected in 1996. So that's just a few elements that led to it.
Yeah, I'll add this little story. I came to NASA for my last time of interviews when I was selected, and they gave us access to where the astronauts, where they were on the, where their offices are. And so I'm walking down the hallway. I had never met Jeff. And I see him at the other end of the hallway. I don't know if you even remember this, Jeff. I'm like, Jeff Williams, I know you. And of course, he immediately thinks, who's this stalker? How'd this stalker get up here on our floor? But the reason I knew him is because he had taken a MacArthur Study Bible to space on his first mission. And of course, I, being a believer or being a Christian, I knew about that. And that was something that was, it was inspiring, and professing Christ and knowing he'd taken the Bible up. Do you even remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, and you did think I was a stalker, didn't you?
No. I think we clicked right away, actually, because of our common faith.
Right. Anyway, so I was going to say that, inspired by astronauts, older astronauts that came before us. And by older, Jeff is older than me, so he inspired me as well. So
that's great.
But we shared many years with a common career. He and I one of our favorite things was grab a T-38 and go. But
you never fight together.
Oh yeah, we overlapped together. His first flight on STS-129 in the fall of
2009.
2009, I was on board Space Station.
Oh, that's
in
great.
The middle of expedition. At the end of 21, transitioning to 22, and they came up, so we overlapped in space about 8 days or so.
Yeah, 10 days. Yeah, about.
That's good.
Sure did.
The missions on Shuttle era were,
much shorter. Oh,
yeah, much shorter.
7 days to a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, and from a space station crew point of view, it was a great day when they arrived and a great day when they left. It's sort of like your extended family that come to visit for the holidays.
Exactly. It's like I always say in Brazil, that is true happiness when they come and when they go.
Exactly. Same on Space Station. Yeah. Some things don't change.
One thing that I would like to know from you, I know that both of you went to space a lot of times, you especially. how is to eat something that is not processed for space after we return? You know, I want a hamburger right now, right after exiting.
You don't want a hamburger right when you get back from long duration. You don't. Trust me. You want to get readjusted first, because the neurovestibular, it gets everybody to different levels, especially long duration. It takes a while for those inner circular canals, you know, to settle out. Different for everybody. Both times my long duration, I was good. About a day later, I was fairly good in that respect. But the big thing for me anyway is your body's not used to holding up your structure, and you've got certain muscles in your back and other places that really you can't exercise those really well, because they exercise like sitting in the chair. Those muscles are being put under stress right now. So you get back, and most people's back.
O Enser e Genesis são os amigos do Eberlin, cara. Terra 6.000 anos, não sei o que, essa porra toda aí.
Backs are just a mess as you get accustomed to holding up your structure. And where my spine hooks into my pelvis at the bottom, I mean, it's this time especially, it's months. And I'm just now where I feel comfortable bending over and picking up something off the floor. And I can tell you, it's amazing how often during these months that I've been back to space, I drop stuff on the floor and have to bend over and pick it up. This happens all the time. And my back now is more accustomed, and now it doesn't hurt like it used to. But it did for several months.
Several months to readjust?
Yes, and there's something else most people don't know is that when you go to space, you know, everything's weightless, right? Your blood is actually floating in your body, and your body says, "Hey, you got extra blood. Let's purge it. You got to purge that out." So over the course of time, it's getting rid of red blood cells. So you come back and you're anemic. And of course, the red blood cells is what circulates oxygen through our bodies. So you come back with a diminished amount. So your stamina is just not there initially until it replenishes those red blood cells. So that's a months and months. Some people it's longer than that. You know, everybody's physiology is different. So for me, the first long duration, it was 5 months before I felt like I was back to myself as far as stamina. This time it was not. It didn't take as long. I'm not sure why, but anyway, that's just some things that people don't realize.
Maybe use it too.
maybe just a custom. Yeah, but I didn't say anything. Like when I first time, I'm like, oh my, something's wrong here. I didn't say anything to flight surgeons, because you talk to flight surgeons about this stuff.
That's why they have this meeting with the flight surgeon.
Right. You get off flight status in a heartbeat, and I like flying T-38s and all that, so I didn't keep my mouth shut. So finally, after I got past that period and everything was fine, I mentioned it to my flight surgeon. He goes, "Oh yeah, we know about that," and that's when he told me about this anemia. I didn't even know it, this anemic thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's everybody has that. I'm like, well, why didn't you say it? Why didn't you tell me?
Jeffrey, your time.
Let's see, piggybacking on that, it took me about a week to 10 days to get over what I call a vestibular awareness. And initially, the first few hours, you can't stand up without your eyesight, you know, taking visual cues because you have no sense of balance. In terms of muscles, flexibility, and coordination, I would say 6 weeks or so, working with a trainer. And my first long flight, we got better exercise equipment after that, but my first long flight, it took almost 2 years to regain my bone mass, my calcium density.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Now, returning, I remember...
Eu acho impressionante que ninguém reclamou ainda nos comentários. A brasileira é tudo burro mesmo.
Remember, let's see, my last flight, the first 2 long flights, I went back to Russia. First one for 3 weeks and then came to Houston. The next time I went back to Russia for a week and then came to Houston. This last time in 2016, I landed in Kazakhstan, and 24 hours later I was back in Houston. So there was a corporate jet that took me back in 3 legs. And I remember the first leg, sleeping the entire leg. I was so exhausted because we'd been up more than 24 hours to go through the process of deorbit and get back to Earth. And the second leg, I ate the whole leg. I ate whatever food I could find. And then the third leg, it was just anticipating getting home. But I remember having a press conference before leaving the station each time. And one of the typical questions is, what's the first thing you want to eat? And some people would say hamburger or cheeseburger or pizza or whatnot. I would say whatever my wife wants to prepare for me, because she's a
real food.
I'm not complaining with anything.
Real food.
But I asked this question because on the last Soyuz mission that landed, the commander, they gave an egg for the commander. He peeled it off and started eating right off, being removed. And I thought that's complicated because, you know, everything is trying to understand where should be.
During the Easter, huh?
Yeah, during the Easter.
Yeah.
So that's why, because I imagine that there is the problem, then you've been sick, a lot of sickness and...
Yeah, most people are just cautious because they don't know how they're going to, and some people do get sick. I chomped on an apple, I think, at the landing site.
Yeah, I was 5 months in space with Alexei, the commander. He'll eat anything.
Yeah.
Great.
So, question for you, Captain Wilmer. You and Sanita are the only astronauts in history to have flown on every crewed spacecraft that has flown to the International Space Station. Shuttle, Starliner, Soyuz, and Dragon. I'd like to know which one's the most comfortable and what your favorite engineering features is about each.
The least comfortable as far as comfort goes is by far the Soyuz, because it's very small. It's a very small outer diameter. If you can't lay on your back as if you're laying in a chair with your feet out straight, you have to pull your legs up and have your knees up near your chin, because it's such a small circumference. To fit 3 people in the Soyuz, you've got to do that.
Triplets in a womb.
Triplets in a womb, exactly.
And you have to use a stick for everything, right?
Yeah, to reach the displays, exactly. So as far as comfort goes, that's by far the least comfortable. The others are similar in comfort as far as the comfort goes, because you're just laying on your back as if you're laying on a chair that's on its back. You're going to space, you're flying in space, you're maneuvering in space, you're controlling spacecraft in space. If you're getting to do that, it doesn't matter what spacecraft you're in space. And, you know, I was the 505th human to leave the planet when I launched on the space shuttle. Randy Bresnik, who was in the mid-deck, was MS2 behind me, he was 506, because I was there a nanosecond before he got there, right? Jeff, I'm assuming you're down 400-something, I don't know what.
I forget.
Yeah, the only reason I know this is because Rob Navius told me when I got back. So anyway, and you realize there's just few people that have had that opportunity, and there's millions literally around the globe that would love to have that opportunity. And the good Lord has allowed you to have a desire of your heart, as it says in Proverbs. And that is very humbling, and it is very special. And that's something that I can't come away with, is just gratitude to my Lord for something as different as this space travel is, that he's allowed me to take part in it in this fashion.
But when you were docking with Starliner, we know that you both had a lot of problems. And what did you feel on that situation? Because I saw your interview with Eric Berger right after, and you saw the degrees of freedom that you had about engines and keeping the spacecraft aligned to space station. And what passed on your mind during this period? And you can add your part for the Lord. How was that? Because it's a very difficult situation. I know that you were on a cold environment and was complicated being there. There's a lot of stress during the situation. How was that for you?
Well, you mentioned I can add my part, include the Lord in that, and I can't tell the story without doing that.
Yeah.
So that's the only way. So the Lord is sovereign. He's in control. I know that there are many questions when you make those statements. We can answer those, but not right now. He is also working providentially in all aspects of society, lives, everything, to work his plan and his purposes for his glory and our good. So when we lost the thrusters on space station, several thoughts. from just the mechanics of what was taking place, we lost the ability to fully control the spacecraft. We lost 6 DOF, 6 degree of freedom control. And we lost the ability to maneuver in one of those 6 axes. And the other axes were substantially degraded. Even the sound of the thrusters, you can hear the thruster valve open and close wherever they are, whichever ones are firing. These were labored sounding. I mean, it was like machine guns now. They're opening and closing so fast every second that you could hear that the spacecraft was laboring. So we have to dock. We can't get back to Earth like this. We got to do something. We have to get docked. That was the thought. Now, how do you control a spacecraft that is in that condition when it can't fully control it? You have to maintain your position. You have to keep looking at the space station because the sensors have to see the station. You know, cameras, IR sensors, LiDAR, lasers, they got to see the station. Because if they lose track, you cannot dock in an automated fashion. You can't do it. So you got to keep pointing. You have to maintain your position, and you don't have full control. How do you do that? Well, that's where the providence and the sovereignty of the Lord comes in. That's all I've done for decades is fly, 6 degree of freedom. It's not hard for me. I see it. I'm thinking orbital mechanics. If I make this input, what's it going to do relative to my position, relative to the space station? I know what's going to happen before I put it in. Not because I'm super smart, but because that's all. I've been doing it constantly. I spent 1,000 or more hours in the Starliner simulator with a guy named Ray Biggin, my rendezvous officer. We'd come in on Saturday mornings. He's a fireman, volunteer fireman. He'd come off shift at 5:30. I'd meet him at 6 in the morning in the simulator, and we're just practicing, doing things. So it's preparation, and the preparation's not there unless the Lord orchestrates events in his sovereign control. And so had I just been somebody thrown in Starliner, I don't think he could have controlled it. But because I had lived it for so long, and I'd lived orbital mechanics going all the way back to my shuttle training for decades, and I had the presence of mind and it's a calmness come over. We call it snakes in the cockpit. You can't get ruffled in the cockpit like snakes, fighting off snakes. You can't let that happen. You have to maintain a demeanor so you can do what's necessary. And that ability goes back to my Navy days, flying off aircraft carriers and landing on the boat at night and in combat and dodging missiles and anti-aircraft artillery and all that plays into it. So it was all that Lord's providential direction of things that put in that moment where calmness, understand contentment, understand he's in control, understanding what the possibilities might be, understanding that he's my Lord and Savior. He's forgiven me my sin because he paid the price for my sin on the cross. If he takes me now, so be it. All of that's going through my mind while I'm trying to control, because I don't want to not make it. Yeah. We have to dock, and the only way we can get there is if I can control the spacecraft long enough for us to get the capability back so we can dock. So all that's going through my mind.
I thought on that a part of Interstellar is not it's not possible, it's necessary. Then Cooper need to dock. It's just like that. I thought when I saw you both trying to dock, and I can imagine how stressful was that, because I imagine that you have a lot of people talking to you.
It wasn't stressful at all. It was in the moment. We have to do this. It's not stress. It's just realizing, and there's a difference in stress and realize. Stress, most times stress is a detriment. Right? It causes you not to be able to perform. So I wasn't stressful. I was concerned, obviously, but I was focused. You have to be. Yeah. One thing we talk about in flying aircraft and spacecraft is compartmentalizing. I can't let the problems I'm dealing with affect when I jump in a jet airplane. I have to compartmentalize that away, and I've done that for an entire career. All of aviators have.
That's turning the key.
You got to flip the switch, and you got to focus on what you're doing now. And that's exactly, I've lived that for decades, literally. And so that's in the moment, focused on what has to take place, orbital mechanics, and it's like, it wasn't like I was back in the sim, because we didn't simulate this, because we never fathomed we'd be in a condition like this. But it was just doing that understanding what my inputs would mean based on my relative position to the space station and how the space station attitude puts me a little lower, what that means as far as orbital mechanics, and doing all that real time because I've lived it. And all the time spent in the simulator, I wasn't there because I wanted to be. It's just providential. That's the way it worked out. Again, that's all accredited to the Lord because he is sovereign.
And God has created each of us uniquely gifted with unique talents, I guess you could say, and abilities. And one component of that is that uniqueness is disposition in what otherwise would be very stressful situations. No, and I think most astronauts stay pretty calm, especially those with military flying backgrounds, because that, as Barry said, that's our whole life. Stay calm in what otherwise would be stressful situations.
And I'll also say this, again, providentially, when we launched on the 5th of June, in the entire astronaut corps, the United States Astronaut Corps, there was one person that had experience, hands-on experience of operating a spacecraft in space, and that was me. Nobody else, everybody else that had ever hands-on maneuvered a spacecraft had already left the office. I was the only one left back to the shuttle era. And then I had the luxury of, on the 5th of June, for several hours operating the spacecraft manually because we were doing all of our tests. It was the first crewed flight of the spacecraft. So we went through this whole litany of tests where I was literally on control for hours doing these various maneuvers and things. So I had that recent experience. I had the experience from the space shuttle era, simulators, of course, but hands-on in space, I had experience like nobody else in the astronaut corps. Probably, I mean, I don't know how many people have, if you looked at how much time I've spent on the controls, there's not many in the history of the space program that have had that much time. And I say that only to say, on the 6th of June, when I needed it, I had the experience that was there, and that's all the Lord's providence. That's all his sovereign direction of all things. Or it would have been, I think the outcome could have been very different.
And the fact that you helped to develop the system of the spacecraft.
Yes, sir.
Helped you in that moment.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Understanding what thrusters went down just by visualizing where they're at as they're calling up which ones are lost, and seeing on the display which ones are lost, and realizing, okay, we've lost 2 bottoms and 1 starboard. I can still lose a top, and I can still lose a port, and still probably maintain control. But if I lose that starboard one, we're going to be in a hurt locker. And I'm like, well, there's no way that's going to happen. And then it failed.
And
that starboard one failed.
And the loss was gradually. Or you lost the thruster?
Ah? Você mal comeu arroz? Que mal comeu? Eu tô cheiaço, velho. É porque eu comi os espetinhos antes, tô muito cheio. Quer me engordar, cara?
Você não gostou do arroz? Você nem comeu.
Como nem comi? Tá achando que eu não gostei do arroz? O arroz tá bonzão. É que eu tô cheio. Eu comi bastante, cara.
Tá bom.
Caraca.
It was gradual. It was over the course of several minutes. As a matter of fact, again, the providence of the Lord, the 3rd thruster we lost it about 10 minutes after we had acquired what we call the V-bar, the velocity vector out in front of the space station, where we're right in front of the space station. Once we acquired that, we're in a certain position, right? If we'd have lost it 10 minutes prior, before we acquired it, the spacecraft would have automatically aborted and left. It would have been an auto abort. But fortunately, again, the providence of the Lord, we're on the V-bar. We lost that 3rd thruster. The spacecraft doesn't abort. I go manual control, and I'm manual control for the next hour and a half as we go through this whole process.
Salve, salve, amigos da astronomia e todo mundo. Estou aqui para falar o seguinte. Vocês acabaram de ver aqui, né, a entrevista com Butch Wilmore, o astronauta que ficou preso, perdido, esquecido no espaço. Mas aqui foi só a primeira parte, porque a segunda parte está lá.
Tá lá no Space Orbit, tá certo? Estamos juntos, eu, Pipício e Serjão, nesse dia épico muito importante. Então você vai acompanhar o restante dessa entrevista lá no nosso canal. É só você entrar pelo link aí ou pelo YouTube que você vai ver informações exclusivas que nós conseguimos nessa história toda aí com os astronautas, coisa que Butch Wilmore nunca falou em nenhuma entrevista até então.
Pedrão extraiu leite de pedra nessas entrevistas.
Com certeza. Então corre lá, pessoal. Vai ficar nos cards aqui neste vídeo e no link na descrição também, ou qualquer coisa lá no YouTube Space Orbit. Então, são 2 partes. Primeira parte aqui, segunda parte lá. Você vai saber tudo sobre a história do Butch Wilmore no espaço.
Valeu!
Caralho, mais 40 minutos. Não vou assistir, não. Cansei dessa porra, velho. Vou deixar aqui o react pra galera. Se inscreve no canal, porque tá na hora de ganhar dinheiro em cima da pseudociência. Cansei dessa merda. Vamos ganhar dinheiro nessa porra. Se inscreve no canal aí.